I have to ask one question, sir. In the 2016 election, you said the first thing or one of the things you wanted to do was release the JFK file. And then you said later, I saw it and I wasn't really ready to do it. And then I saw a clip where you changed your mind and you said, I think we're ready to see this file. And I'm just curious.
What's in it?
Tell us right now. What happened?
I actually did do it. I released a lot, as you know. But when it came to the whole thing, I was hit by some people that worked for me that are great people that you would respect. And they asked me not to do it. And I'm saying, why? Tell me why. And they said, sir, I think it needs a little more time. And I released a lot. But I said, if they feel so strongly, I respect the people and would have done that again. But this time, I'm just going to do it.
RFK says the CIA killed his uncle. Do you believe that?
Well, this wasn't CIA that asked me, but I think CIA was probably behind it. But they didn't. They would have preferred that I not release the rest of it. It's going to be done early on. A lot of people want to see that. And whatever it may say, I won't say. I sort of have an idea. But whatever it is, it'll be very interesting for people to see. And we're going to have to learn from it. By the way, I generally speaking, and there are reasons not to release certain things, obviously, but I generally, it's transparency. And I think it's important that we release that.
Well, there we go. I thought his statement was interesting when he said, I think the CIA was behind that.
Yeah.
That could be interpreted as the CIA was behind the people telling him not to release.
Yeah.
Or the CIA was behind RFK's uncle.
Yeah.
That was an interesting.
Right. It was very quick. I mean, again, he released thousands and thousands of documents. This spin by the mainstream media, I think he released 3,000 different files that we all went through. And there's a lot of gold in there, especially about Watergate. So this, this spin that he didn't release anything is absurd. Again, it was Pompeo, for people who don't know, who came to him. I guess Pompeo at that moment was not CIA in his mind. What was he, Secretary of State, Eric?
Right. He had left
he
that
technically
position.
was not CIA. Yeah.
So,
interesting spin. I mean, Trump didn't come out and say this. He was asked about this. So, I mean, it's not like he woke up today and said, I got to talk about the JFK files. I mean, he released thousands and thousands and thousands more files than Joe Biden did. The lawsuits are against Joe Biden now, that, as we learned at the conference in Dallas, the lawsuits from COPA, are not against Trump. They're against Joe Biden, who missed the deadline and released absolutely nothing. Not nothing, but he released thousands also, Joe Biden. But there's still stuff in there that as I said, and he mentions it, involving foreign affairs. And that's the thing that I've been saying for years. It involves foreign governments. Not that foreign governments killed Kennedy. It involves our relationships with the intelligence services of foreign governments. That I have to be emphatic about that so people don't misquote me. And it's specifically Mexico, and there's other ones in there, because you can see in the files that are released, there are files involving other governments and other intelligence services. And it's about a broad range of stuff. The Black Panthers, hijackings of planes, 1963, 65 events. I mean, before 63, all of the files are not necessarily about 1963, folks.
True.
A lot of them are afterwards. There's a ton of stuff afterwards, and there's a ton of stuff before. And a lot of it, you may think, what does this have to do with JFK? And it may have nothing to do with it, but it's in there.
True. Well, that's a perfect segue into the other person who's mentioned in that quick chat, RFK, who's failing to qualify for the debates.
It's really sad. There's a couple of things. Right now, there's a protest going on around the CNN building in New York and the CNN building here on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. And if you look at the protest, it says they are occupying CNN, which is kind of a funny headline by them. And there's not many of them. So they're marching. This is an old trick. They're marching around the block. So, yeah. See this photo? Oh, there's video. Show the video.
Yeah.
RFK, let him see. CNN, don't see me. RFK, let him see. Don't be weak. RFK. CNN.
Yeah.
All right. This is like 50 people marching around the building in a circle, which is an old trick by the military to show that you've got more hardware than you actually have.
Yeah, they used it in the Civil War, specifically, I believe, in Virginia. I don't know if it was Lee who did it, but yeah, he was outgunned by a lot of people. So
right
behind the trees, they kept circling around. So
and the Soviets famously used to. The Soviets did it with their missiles. They would go around for their May Day parades, and that's why we not spied on them. But that's why we would observe these May Day parades of the Soviets, because we'd see the same missile coming around and try to count and go, oh, no, it's back again. Okay, that's the same one. We're not worried anymore. But yeah, it's an old trick. That being said, they're really spaced out, as you could see in the video. Again, there's another side story. He took in April nearly $15 million in donations. And by May, it had plummeted to $2 million. By June, I think it'll be down to $300,000. He's done. He's done. Because now the real donors who are real serious, who apparently waste their money like it's water, have turned off the spigot knowing that his campaign is dead. So that's the end of RFK Jr. I still suggest that he drop this and run for governor. There's still time to take the Senate seat. That's in November. He could take the Senate seat away from Adam Schiff, which would be a great mitzvah. Or if he doesn't want to take on a fellow Democrat like Adam Schiff, he can walk into Sacramento in the governor's mansion, and just like Schwarzenegger did. Another person who was a celebrity and had a name and blah, blah, blah. I mean, running the state of California, to me, if you've got all these ideas, would be a great petri dish to try it out. What could go wrong? I mean, the whole state is melting down. I mean, I would actually vote for him in a heartbeat over anybody in this state if he ran for governor.
A lot of Republicans would vote for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So would
anything.
I. Yeah. I mean, but they think you're trolling them. These people are so cultish. You know, these single moms with 2 kids who are anti-vax, who are 35 years old, who are madly in love with him. And then you've got the other side, which is the old Bernie bros. That's his base. I don't mind either base. I'm just saying this thing is done. Get out of the lane. We're busy. People are trying to resolve this insane election coming up. Stop dealing with your egocentric, maniacal, insane attempt to convince us that you have an avenue to victory. The donors are going to determine whether you're alive or dead by the end of this month, folks. So rest in peace, RFK Jr. presidential campaign. RFK Jr. 2028, Governor 2026 is the new bumper sticker.
Well, we've talked about this too before, that his people seem to equate his getting on a ballot as winning a state. And I do think that's,
I've never seen anything quite like it. Yeah, they get on a ballot in Utah where Trump won 60% of the vote, and they're tied with 19% in a poll with Biden in Utah.
We're number 2. We're number 2.
Not even number 2, for Christ's sakes. Who cares? It's a winner-take-all situation in these states. They never address the elephant or the donkey in the room, which is the fact is you're not going to defeat these other 2 guys in states that are not in play. So why waste your time getting on a ballot in California? What difference does it make? If I was running his campaign, I would just focus on the battleground states. If I was involved with him and it was real, I would say, don't waste your effort on New York and California, Florida and Texas. Forget about it, bro. Save your money, take the donor money. And if this is more than a campaign of ideas, which I doubt that it is, I would focus on the battleground states and go berserk in there with ad buys and everything else. But it's not. He's hoarding the money. He's spreading it around to his workers. He has them all on salary. The campaign is a glorified NGO that he's created that the donors are now going to cut off money to. So he's going to be done, financially done, after the debate, because that was the Hail Mary.
Well, while we're speaking about being done, this headline came out. So, the drum beat keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. How long have we been talking about this?
Dude, it's, well, it seemed obvious to me over a year and a half ago, but.
Did you get disconnected? I'm not sure if your mic got lost. I don't hear you. Yep, I'm not yet. Good times.
2 minutes into it, I get problems. It's astounding. Anyway, the Greg Kelly last night, this is a separate issue. We'll get back to this in a second. Greg Kelly last night, all of a sudden says, I think Trump's going to go to jail. That's right. And he has an awakening. Like, Trump's going to go to jail. Marchand is going to sentence him. Of course, some other thing I've been saying for a long time, that they're going to want to see him behind bars on July 11th, which I'm sticking to. This other thing I'm sticking to also, the fact that they are going to use the debates. That's why they scheduled them for June 27th. I think it's next Thursday night on CNN. By the way, it's what's her name? The blonde and Jake Tapper. What's her name over there? The short hair blonde with a B. People in the chat know who she is. I don't want to see it. I forget who she is. But anyway, it's really like 3-on-1 because Jake Tapper is a
Dana Bash,
whose husband was in the State Department and the CIA. Just so people remember this, because I haven't thought about Dana Bash in a long time. Her husband or ex-husband, I don't know if she's still married to him, was CIA. And then Jake Tapper, of course, a former Democratic operative. So he and her. Then you've got Biden. It's a 3-on-1 to begin with here. And then if you had Kennedy, it would be a 4-on-1 pile-on. So at least that's not happening. And then who knows if they've given him the questions. I mean, Donna Brazile famously stole the questions when she worked at CNN and gave them to Hillary Clinton. We know that. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a cheap, what do they call it? A cheap take video now? What's the phony videos called?
Deep fake.
Deep fake. No, it's cheap fake. They're not using. No. Do you know about this story?
No.
They've changed it from deep fake to cheap fake as a psyop verbal plot twist. They are now using a different phrase called cheap fake. And there's a lot of coverage about the phrase cheap fake last night on multiple networks. And it's not deep fake. So anyway, the situation with the switcheroo, the media has finally caught up with us. To give you the skinny on that one, they finally caught up with what we've been saying for over a year.
That's interesting about the cheek fakes. I'm going to have to look that up.
Look it up, bro. Look it up.
That might be a video I'll be doing with Nate. Interesting.
Nate knows about it.
No, hey, I didn't hear that. Speaking of,
it's a verbal sleight of hand that was used by the Haitian lesbian woman who was the press secretary the other day.
Okay. Well, I thought I pulled this clip. I saw it on X. I thought you might enjoy it because it expresses a lot of people's sentiment that we have here, and with the illustrious Frank Lutz.
Dude, what happened to this guy? Dude, I saw him. I don't want to say anything, but I used to see him at Dodger Stadium, and every time he was there, he seemed to have an underage boy with him. And just putting it out there.
Well, he's got to have fun besides with Kevin.
Yeah, there could have been a Boy Scout outing. I don't really know. I'm just saying, I don't know what was going on, but
I mean, okay, I'm sure Kevin he's not going to let him go too far astray.
Right.
I don't know if this makes you proud. I'm watching them yell at each other and act like idiots.
For somebody that doesn't know me to call me an idiot, this is coming from a guy that dyed his hair and it doesn't even match his beard. So let's not start insulting each other. I'm a United States Air Force. You don't know me. You called me an idiot. So now, just like with Trump, you guys can talk all the shit you want to Trump, but Trump can't fight back.
Who is the guy in the middle?
You want silence. We're not going to be silenced anymore.
That guy is
I'm a United States Air Force veteran. My parents are legal immigrants.
He's one of the co-hosts with Patrick Bet-David.
Oh, I remember that guy. He's an interesting guy. Who's the guy on the right?
That's George, the deposed congressman.
Santos. George Santos. What a crew.
And then that's Cenk Uygur on the left of the Young Turks.
I think RFK was on with Cenk Uyghur the other day, and I think he's got some Nepo nephew or Nepo baby who's just a YouTuber. Do you know about this guy? Like, he's got a huge following. His son or nephew is a huge.
Oh! You're talking about Hassan Piker.
Okay, you know who this is.
Cenk's, right? Cenk's nephew.
His nephew, right? Yeah, his nephew. Now, by the way,
he's an amazing prick. He's like
everybody
the communist.
says that. Yeah.
Including Cenk, by the way.
I know.
What's funny? His co-host looked at him. She was like, "Yeah, as if we don't know about relatives."
There's a story breaking out of Oakland. The FBI raided the home of the mayor yesterday afternoon. These are humungs. Is it mungs or humungs? These are the mayor of. If you look her up, the mayor of Oakland is a Hmong, and she is a corrupt Hmong, and the city's out of control. But I think her kiss of death was she fired the black police chief, and the Biden administration sent in the FBI yesterday, and they sent it in also to the a private sanitation company that's also run by Hmongs, and they're trying to take her down on corruption charges, which may or may not be true. I don't really know. She's clearly incompetent. The city's completely melting down up there. But I thought they were Chinese. They're not. They're Laotian immigrants that are running the city of Oakland, by the way. But there'll be more on this story. It just broke late last night, late at the end of the day yesterday. The FBI was raiding her house. When they start raiding the house of a mayor, like in New York, where they stopped him on the street and took his cell phone. Nobody finds this to be an interesting story. The mayor of the largest city in the country, the FBI took his cell phone. There was no follow-up to this story, Eric. It's just, he's in bed with the Turks for construction money. I mean, holy crap. These construction stories and building stories in urban areas will never go away.
Well, no, and you've got your whole city council getting locked up one person at a time, don't you?
Nobody has more urban officials in jail than Los Angeles. It's just, you would think it would scare them, but it doesn't stop. It's astounding how bad they are at corruption itself, because it's one after another, and they're not even connected. There's just one corrupt official after another being taken down and jailed in LA. Now, Garcetti had to flee, as we said, to India, which is an old Democratic tradition, to give them a lifeline or a life preserver as an ambassadorship. He just was visiting. That's why it was on my mind. He came back the other day. This new construction of this, what I call the homeless Hilton in downtown LA, has now made the national news. The homeless Hilton, in case people haven't followed this story, it's just breaking. It's opening up 278 apartments, gym, library, health club, restaurant, absolutely everything inside here. It's just absolutely stunning. And it's all for the, as Rob Schmidt said last night, the bums. They're taking, this is the lobby. And everyone is looking at this. Even Rob Schmidt last night was saying, this is 1,000,000 times better than my Manhattan hovel that I live in. That's what Schmidt said last night. Look at what they're giving the homeless crackheads. And I mean crackheads, because, Dr. Drew went down with a group of experts about 1.5 years ago, went through Skid Row, and Drew said about 85 to 92% are meth fentanyl addicts who are on the street, huffing and puffing their glass pipes. This is who's getting these apartments, folks. These apartments are not going to make them stop smoking meth. The apartment itself is not going to make them quit addiction. Apartments don't do that. That's not one of the superpowers of an apartment.
But Mark, there's a gym. They'll get healthy, really.
There's an incredible gym, and there's, unless they're, which it may be an idea that I could add on to this thing, unless they're court ordered to go to meetings and it's on the facilities, like there's meetings in the building, and the judge gives you a court card that you've got to get the secretary to sign, which is quite common in urban centers where if you're criminally caught, the judge will sentence you to 12-step meetings, X amount of them, sometimes quite a few, sometimes one a day, and you got to get this thing signed and bring it back to the judge.
Can we have it as a reality TV show, please?
Dude, I thought that immediately. It was the first effing thing that came to my mind, is going down there and trying to get in there as a homeless person like, you know, black like me or addict like me, and stuff I've done in journalism. I've actually done this where I've gone into rehabs and posed as an active addict. I've done this work. Man, was I thinking in bed the other night going, what a dream. And I just said, it's like, I don't know if I could pull it off because there's so much red tape, you know, surrounding these NGOs that are milking this thing. And this is $600,000 per apartment. Just keep that in mind when you see this thing, because it's now spreading across the national news. Again, the reason I think this is happening is a women's point of view. We have an all-women's board of supervisors and a 95% all-women city council. What is the most important thing to women? The home. They want, and it may be justified in their minds, if we could just provide a home for these people, I think we can cure them and treat them. Their obsession with giving them a home, I believe, is a feminine mindset, a woman's mindset, as a treatment for this. And it may be good-natured and may be well-intentioned, but it's deranged nevertheless. The amount of money being spent for them to believe that this is manageable, because you're going to be putting 278 active addicts into a building that's a luxury building. Holy crap, is that the greatest reality show of all time? Wow.
Yeah, when you're
I just want to call it the Homeless Hilton. That's the name of the show. Makes its own sauce.
Oh, for sure. Just plant cameras everywhere and just start recording. But those people who have that philosophy always blow my mind, because they're the same ones. When you try to critique them about whatever their program is or whatever they're thinking, they'll go, oh, it's complicated. It's more nuanced than that.
It's not more nuanced than that.
But they're idiots, and they want things to be simple. It's like, well, they're homeless, so give them a home.
Right. Well, they changed.
Like dogs,
keep in
so
mind, they
just kick
changed the name. They had to change the name from homeless 2.5 years ago to our unhoused neighbors. If you say homeless, they will correct you on the spot. The mayor will correct you. Any city official will say, I mean our unhoused neighbors. They're our neighbors. They just are in front of our house, urinating and defecating. They're still our neighbors. They're just unhoused. So if we gave them a house, they would be our housed neighbors or our neighbors. And we could get rid of that. It's a simple philosophy. Now, there's a grassroots organization out of Santa Monica that has sued the city of LA and the county of Los Angeles successfully in court. The judge has ruled that the city must provide 3,000 beds, must clean out the parks, and must provide addiction treatment. They sued for 3 things. They won on all 3. And now they're dealing with the city to implement the judge's orders that the parks must be cleared and the places that people use for recreation must be cleared. They must be immediately given beds, and they must immediately be given treatment. Those are the 3 things the judge in the case, and it was a simple lawsuit. It was easily won. And now LA, the city, is trying to weasel out of this court case ruling by doing everything they can to throw up blockers against this grassroots organization. For instance, the Barbara Ferrer, who's the health czar, was told that in the parks in Santa Monica, they're giving out needles, they're shooting up. The city's giving out needles, the city's giving out crack pipes, the city's giving out tinfoil. And in these parks in Santa Monica are women with children and babies and carriages, and these guys are shooting up and ODing. So when informed of the court case and the rulings, and it's a year ago and a year back, so there's 2 of them. The county was a year before and the city was last year. Both rulings successful, both enforced by judges. She said, I'm not changing. I don't care. Because she said it's not about health. It's political. And there it is. They, like you've pointed out and I've pointed out, Marxists will take any job the city offers and turn it into a Marxist position of power. And that's what Barbara Ferrer did. She's the highest paid health commissioner in the country. She makes far more than the president of the United States. She made close to $1 million a year last year. And it's not about money for her. She has a degree in Marxist urban planning, not about health. She's not a doctor. Her PhD is a PhD doctor. People were deceived thinking she was a health commissioner, that she might actually be a doctor. It's not necessary. It's about Marxist implementing in her role, whatever her power is. They do the same thing with the school boards. And we're going to have a woman on at 6 o'clock named Maud Marin, who's going to tell us about the school board in New York, which is where I was going with this mini rant. The situation is whatever base they can get, they will abuse the power of that base for Marxist purposes, having nothing to do with the job itself. It could be the county commissioner on dogs. It could be the health commissioner. It could be the DMV. Every single job that they can get, and it's elected or appointed, they will turn into a Marxist platform, having either something to do with that job or maybe not. It doesn't even matter. They all will do. They have to be stopped at the electoral process. They have to be checked. They have to be analyzed. They have to be given a written exam. They have to be vetted before they get into a position of power. If we're going to fight against the Marxists. If not, just kiss your country goodbye and let them take over, because they have sneakily snuck in there. Now, there's people who put out the list on Marxist judges that are trying to get in there every year now. So there's some progress, because a lot of these judges in urban areas run unopposed and we don't know their philosophy. There are people vetting them now. But the school boards have become, as people have seen, the parents have shown up and they're being removed by police. They have the FBI after them. They are using the school board for their own Marxist philosophies. This is where it was first exposed to the average American that these were not normal school boards from 1965. I used to think, and many people believe, that these school boards were run by parents. They're not run by parents. These people don't have children. It's a whole different situation. Parents are completely stunned when they've shown up. They've been silenced. Sometimes if a school board person speaks out of turn or speaks in politically incorrect terms that they don't like, even if they're an elected school board official, they will remove them from the board itself. They don't care what your rights are. They don't care what you think is your right to say whatever you want to say about the school policies. If you're a legit school board member, they will just physically shut you down. And we're going to get into that in a couple of minutes, I think, for about 10 or 15 minutes.
Ideally. Now, keep in mind, too, the brilliance of going for school boards.
Yep.
The truth is that conservatives, Republicans don't bother, again, with low-level stuff.
Right.
And the school boards, you're going to find that even in red districts, the school boards are covered with a bunch of commies. Because
not only that,
go in there and infiltrate and then train rich people's children
the way
they want to. It's smart as hell.
Even here in LA, the Marxist woman who runs the teachers union provides the funds for you to run for the school board. The average amount of money to get a school board seat in LA, $2 to $3 million in money to run. That's provided by the LAUSD union, the teachers union, who are avowed Marxists. They're not shy about it. The woman who is running the union is an avowed Marxist, and she controls the purse strings for you to attempt to run for school board, to be a school board member. So it's an incredibly difficult uphill battle now, but we were asleep at the switch, Eric.
All right. Well, our guest is with us, and we can discuss this further and see what's going on in New York.
Oh, and then there's Maud. Hey, Maud.
I've never heard that before.
You know what? I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to do it. Nobody's going to get that joke, Maud. Nobody's going to.
People as old as me will get it. So
right. Thank you for coming on, Maud Marin. I saw her on Rob Schmidt the other night, and I immediately invited her on the show. We're talking about school boards and their draconian moves, Maud, which maybe you can explain to the audience who you are and what happened to you. And what borough are you in, by the way?
I am in Manhattan.
Okay.
And we call our school boards community education councils.
What?
I know it's got to be a little bit different in New York City.
Right.
We have very, very little actual official power. A lot of school boards actually hire the principal or set the budgets. New York City councils, education councils, are advisory. But that doesn't mean we can't piss people off. And I got a whole lot of people mad at me by passing a resolution, which is entirely advisory. This is non-binding resolution suggesting that we should review the 2019 gender guidelines. There were these gender guidelines passed right before COVID hit and shut down our schools for so long. that, in the nutshell, replaced biological sex with gender identity. Why that's important, it means that biological males, boys, can say they're girls and play in girl sports. Right. And whatever your opinion is about gender identity and transgender issues and sports is an area where a lot of Americans have been really clear that basic fairness means we have sex-based categories for sports.
Unfortunately, Leah Thomas just got jettisoned from the Olympics. She is whatever. The individual, Leah Thomas, is banned from competing in swimming in the Olympics.
Which is a win for fairness and for all the girls and women who should get to compete in a sex-based category.
So I'm sorry, your position is among how many people there, Maud?
So New York City is the largest school district in the nation, right? Give or take by tens of thousands, 1 million kids, whether you count the charter school kids or not. There's like 1 million kids in the New York City public school district.
What?
Yeah, it's huge. We have essentially 36 of these councils. And my council covers the biggest swath of Manhattan. What people think about sometimes when they think of Manhattan, Midtown to, Times Square to the Upper East Side, all the way down to, I live in Lower Manhattan, down to Battery Park City. It's a huge, big section of Manhattan. It's called District 2. There's 32 school districts and 4 citywide districts. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of elected, we call them parent leaders. And we give advice to the chancellor, and we get elected directly by the parents in our district. And we advise on a lot of issues. We pass resolutions all the time. We pass resolutions about curriculum, about school safety protocols, about all sorts of things. We're generally ignored. They don't listen to us too much. Right. Although in the last few years, in Manhattan, the struggle has really been about, and in Queens and Brooklyn too, about improving academic instruction. And we were engaged with Bill de Blasio, our former mayor, in a very big fight to preserve specialized high schools, which are these, STEM-based high schools that you have to take a test to get into.
You're talking about Stuyvesant,
Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, and yep. Bill de Blasio wanted to get rid of the test because it was racist, because everything's racist these days. And parents, including many, many Asian parents, but parents actually across the city that wanted to support keeping those schools as they are, fought back and won, basically. And,
oh, really? I didn't know that. I was wondering what happened to that movement.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, we won where almost every other place lost. Lowell High School in San Francisco, which has sometimes been called the Stuyvesant of San Francisco, yeah. They lost merit-based admissions and they sort of got it back. Then they lost. There's a saga going on in San Francisco. Thomas Jefferson High School lost their merit-based admissions. It went into the courts. The exam-based schools in Boston also went through this same sort of equity convulsion. And in New York, we held on to it. And it's thanks to the really amazing number of parents who showed up and fought for those schools. But I'll say this, it toughened me up because that was a fight where you get called racist all the time. Now I can kind of laugh about it because it's so dumb.
How strong was the help from the Asian community in fighting
instrumental.
this?
We wouldn't have held on to those seats without the number of Asian parents who showed up and fought back. But I'll also say it was coalition building because there is, there's an alumni network from those schools that's pretty impressive and pretty vast. And so we had a lot of sort of behind the scenes support. We had the on the ground grassroots fighting. There was a lot of parents, immigrant parents. There were Lithuanian parents and Polish parents.
Right. Right. It's an immigrant
and situation. One thing we got that was kind of wonderful and that I learned a lot from is parents and the children of immigrants who came from former communist countries, right? Like the Eastern Europeans and the Chinese were saying, like, Maud, we know what this is, and this isn't good. Right. And the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, this isn't about communism. This is like just trying to hold on, like we need to have good education policies and blah, blah, blah. But it turns out they were right. They were right about these like sort of seismic forces that are at play in some of these big social issues in our country.
Now, who is the chancellor of the school board there? Because he used to be a normal guy, I remember a couple of years ago. And what did he wake up one day and he was a Marxist, or what's the deal with it?
David Banks ran David Banks, nice guy. I mean, I heard so many good things about him when he was rumored to be the next chancellor coming in, and he's appointed by Eric Adams. It's not elected; it's an appointed position.
Interesting.
The New York City mayor. He grew up in Queens. He went to school in Queens. Like, he is a normal New York City guy. He's a grown man in his 50s, you know, and it's like, of course he knows the difference between a man and a woman. Like, of course he knows people can't magically change sex, no matter how much, you know, opposite sex hormone you inject into your body or how many body parts you cut off. You can't change sex, and boys don't belong in girls' sports. There's nothing remotely controversial about those things, but my counsel, myself in particular, my counsel, we're being pilloried right now for passing what is essentially like a milquetoast resolution that says we should have a committee and review the 2019 gender guidelines. That's all we asked for. We didn't say boys and girls sports bad. We didn't say trans anything bad. We didn't even mention trans or anything about trans stuff. All we said is girls sports are impacted by this decision. We should have a review committee and include female athletes, coaches, parents, doctors. That's it. That's what the resolution said. Can we please have a committee where we review these guidelines? They're 5 years old. And in the 5 years since they were passed, by the way, countries like Finland and Sweden and England have done these big systemic reviews and said, like, with the evidence isn't really there to support all this gender transitioning of kids. But we didn't even talk about that. All we said is, it's been 5 years. Can we review this decision? Which is, you know, the most reasonable thing in the world to ask for.
Wow. And what was their response to you? Were they polite? Did they take a hammer to your head? I mean, how did they respond to this, Maud?
Well, I bet anyone listening can guess. But Jerry Nadler, who's one of the long-standing members of Congress,
used to be my congressman on the Upper West
Side.
Side.
Oh yeah, there you go, Upper West Side congressman.
I remember when it was Fat Jerry who would waddle down the street, and we had to help him. I mean, now it's skinny
all
Jerry.
that much. He's lost a step or two, but he is, you know, a water-carrying Democrat. He does and the Democratic Party has gone so far left at the moment, and I say that as someone who was a 3-decade-long Democrat. Jerry Nadler and 17 other elected officials, a congressman, state senators, city council people, state assembly members, signed a letter saying that it was hateful, discriminatory, and actively harmful to ask for this review.
What? Wait. Who got them to sign this letter? How did this?
They signed it themselves. It's on Jerry Nadler's letterhead. I mean,
no, but who propelled this?
The super woke left.
Okay.
Portion of the political world in New York City, right?
So they got Nadler, they got him on the phone, said you have to write a letter and everybody's got to sign it.
They have there's an activist core. I mean, just like we did grassroots organizing to save the specialized high school, they do grassroots organizing to pursue the most extreme leftist positions you can come up with.
Okay.
I don't begrudge anyone their activism. Go do, you know, organize how you want to organize. But the fact that 18 elected officials said, you can say whatever you want is hateful, but asking for a committee is just not plausibly hateful. Even if you disagree with me 100%, I don't think people can change sex, and I think doing it to kids is really bad. You can say, Maud, you're wrong about everything. But if you're convinced that your arguments hold up to daylight and to scrutiny, and that, like, my response would be, bring it on. You want to have a committee? Let's do it. I'll show you my evidence. I'll show you the science. I'll show you the data that supports what I'm saying. And when it comes, certainly, I think, to what I think about the trans stuff, the evidence is really, really clear. There's no amount of altering a boy's biology that levels the playing field and turns him into a girl such that it's fair to compete against girls and girls sports.
So this is a hill that you're willing to die on, despite your decades of liberal Democratic endorsements and working for Hillary Clinton and Obama and everything else. This is something where you personally, Maud Maron, a Jewish woman from the Lower East Side, has said enough is enough. Am I wrong about this, Maud, or what?
I am no longer a Democrat. The Democratic Party went galloping off in a direction that doesn't include me, and it doesn't include a lot of.
I know.
There's a lot of us out there. Like, I'm not alone. I'm not a unicorn. I'm not unusual. Yep. You and me both.
No, I know. Okay, so what did they do to you? Let's get to the chase. What was their response from the Comintern, from the Politburo and the Lower East Side? What was their response down there?
We have had 4 months worth on my council of super activist, sort of trans and trans allied people coming to our meetings. We passed it in March. It's over. Yeah. They came to the March meeting and said, don't pass it. We passed it. They came to the April meeting, the March, April, May, June, just last week.
Right.
And they, at the last meeting, they wanted to rescind the resolution. That vote failed. It's not being rescinded. Like, it's out there. We said what we said. No one's going to take us up on the offer for a review. But there was this, if you Google CEC2 or look on X, on Twitter/X, you'll see all this weird video from our meeting of these trans activists dressed in white and in lots of trans pride flags. Every time someone stood up at the public speaking session, you go up to the mic, your name gets called, you go to the, every time someone stood up that didn't parrot their talking points, they started humming and like making these weird noises. So there were, because first they were shouting down speakers, and then we told them we're gonna end the meeting. You're gonna get thrown out if you shout down.
That's democratic.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very inclusive, right? And so they couldn't shout them down, so they started humming. And it was kind of one of the weirdest public meetings I've ever been. This weird, creepy humming where they would hum and do all this stuff. But the thing that's absurd about it is, if you're so convinced about your position, if you're so sure that you're right, why do you need to drown out opposing points of view?
It's a great question.
Mark, your mic got switched up somehow.
Okay. We'll keep going anyway.
But you mentioned that the school board, whatever you call it there, doesn't have the same power. Who do the schools actually listen to? Who do they report to?
That's a great question. I mean, the short answer is the union, the teachers union and the principals union hold enormous sway. When our schools got closed down, it was the unions that kept them closed. And the union is woke as heck, right? Like the people that run the union, Randy Weingarten, and the people on the lower level that are on it's the UFT here in New York. There's the two big, national unions, but it's the United Federation of Teachers here in New York. And they have a lot of like AstroTurf organizations. There's these different groups that are like these equity groups that people get funded to be out there agitating and support these things. What I have found really interesting is the council that I sit on. It used to be this kind of, these actually only started under Mayor Bloomberg. So it wasn't that long ago. It's when he tried to get rid of the old Board of Ed in New York, which was a very corrupt.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. Where I remember that. Yeah.
So back in the day, for a tiny bit of history, like there was a Board of Ed. It was very corrupt. It's such a big school system. The contracts are huge, lots of money flowing through. Bloomberg wanted control. And so some legal changes happened and they got rid of that Board of Ed. It's now sort of called the Panel for Education Policy, and they instituted all these education councils. That's why this exists. It's from that system.
Oh, that's why I was confused. I didn't know about the Bloomberg thing. I'm sorry.
That's why we have this sort of cockamamie system, because Bloomberg
I didn't know.
Fighting the powers that be in Albany, and he wrested control of the school system, and we call it mayoral control. Wow. So really, the mayor's in charge. But what every Albany, which is the state capital in New York, it's like there's a fight every year or 2 years or 3 years over control of the school system. And so a lot of political capital is spent fighting over who controls it. And the union is either happy with you or not. They love Bill de Blasio because he's a Marxist. And so they were all happy together. Right. And they're not so happy with Eric Adams because he's, for all his faults, and he has many, he's somewhat reasonable about school stuff. And he's tried to undo some of the damage that de Blasio did. Yeah. But he's a real split the baby kind of mayor, so he tries to keep everybody happy. But he's been better than Bill de Blasio.
Well, that's a low bar, but I mean, let's face it. Anybody would be better than Bill de Blasio.
That's very true.
Well, more, go ahead. I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
No, I had one more. Something that Mark's been campaigning for, and we've been talking about on this show for a while. What are your thoughts on police right now have body cams all the time, and that's led to some good discoveries where sometimes the officer is proven correct, sometimes the suspects are proven correct, but it's helped keep people honest. What do you think of cameras in the classroom, not pointed at the kids, obviously, but pointed at the front of the room where anybody can tune in anytime and see what their kids are being taught?
I don't love it, but it'd be worth a pilot program and giving it a try, but to maybe, for a math class, okay, sure. But like sometimes to have real conversation, you're discussing Of Mice and Men, a great book that should be talked about in every class, right? Like for kids to be able to for 14-year-olds to offer up ideas, I think it's more important. It sort of seems invasive, right? Like it's not group therapy and classrooms shouldn't be therapy, but for kids to have real meaningful discussions, they have to talk. And I just don't see it. And look, I'm Ms.
Were you a teacher, Maud? Did you come from the teaching world or?
No, I was a public defender. I was a criminal.
I'm sorry. That's all right. Well, where can we find you, by the way, if our audience wants to follow you or follow Twitter, this story, for instance?
I go by my name everywhere. So on Twitter, I'm at Maud Marin. There's also maudmarin.com if you want to see some of the things I've written about. And I've written about public safety, about education, about the sort of political world in New York City. Ooh. So all the things we're talking about, I've written about.
And what, on a blog or on City Journal or
Post, but also Newsweek, Free Press.
Okay. Right on.
A bunch of different places.
Right on. Okay, well, this has been great. We got to have you back and get to the end of this story. I went to PS 99 in Midwood and then 194 in Sheepshead Bay. I don't know if they're still there, but those are great.
A New York City boy. I love it.
Yeah, so those are great schools. And I lived in Manhattan for about 25 years. But okay.
Let me just think. There are a lot of great schools in New York. And there are
absolutely
great kids. There's failing schools and bad schools too, but there's tons of good work going on in New York City public schools.
Well, I'm just glad that Stuyvesant survived and high school science and Brooklyn Tech and those
great
schools.
Great kids and great teachers doing great stuff at those schools.
Ma, this super chat's on point. Have you gotten a hold of or ever spoke to James Lindsay and his network?
I love James Lindsay. Jim, I've talked to him many times. He's a great guy. I talked to him early on when when I was first being beaten up and I was a little overwhelmed by it. And he was enormously supportive and wonderful. He's a great guy.
Wow. Okay. That's great. Well, Maud, thank you for coming on. I just wanted to get a couple of minutes with you. Love to have you back when we get to this story a little further on, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Would love to do it.
Okay. Thanks, Maud.
Okay. Bye-bye.
There goes Maud.
There she went. Yeah. Alex Davy Duke also had commented in there. I work at the fourth largest school board in North America. School boards were woke and leftists will capture the children for life, like the Jesuits once boasted.
Yeah, no, right. That's what I've been saying. Yeah. She's not as far to the right as we are, but she's getting there.
No. You know what? We could follow up on cameras in the classroom next time.
Right. Yeah, we'll get back to the
ask,
Let her think about it. Let her think about it. I don't care about mice and men. I don't even care about the topics.
I wouldn't mind that. Like, well, hearing the kids talk about that, I'd be encouraged.
That'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, that's a great idea, Johnny, or whoever you are, or whatever kid.
And they don't say anything about when you go to the ATM, who's putting money in where and what's going on. There could be a celebrity at the ATM, like Dave Chappelle, who was showing up at ATMs in Manhattan in his bathrobe and slippers in some sort of a phase that he went through. You didn't know about this, did you?
No, I haven't followed all of Dave Chappelle's career.
This was back in the day after he walked out of his show. And he apparently went on a hiatus, quote unquote, but he was seen at various ATMs around New York, 1 and 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in his bathrobe and slippers, pulling money out of ATMs. People got some random ideas because of that.
Yeah, gee, I wonder what he could have been spending the money on.
No, I don't know. Well, you know how they have limits at ATMs, like 500,
300, or
right. So he was going from one ATM to another, but he was in his bathrobe, so people thought that was a little odd. I just want to give a shout out to this book that my friend Shane O'Sullivan wrote out of Ireland. This is the new. What's that?
I said
Yeah, Shane O'Sullivan out of Ireland, who we know from the RFK. I'm sorry. He did do Killing Oswald, a great DVD, by the way. He also did Who Killed RFK, and he's moved into the book Watergate Burglars. I want to thank the JFK Book Fund, now the Watergate Book Fund, for allowing this to get purchased. It's a great book about the burglars, which we'll continue to cover, Eric.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, well, while we're on to goofy stories, this one I had to share with our friend George earlier. Oh, here. So.
Oh yeah, this is crazy. This is. I thought this was, this was coming, and how quickly they go. Yeah, the pilots union. It sounds good. Like, yeah, it sounds good. We're the pilots union. It should be a flight deck, just like Star Trek, and cockpit has the word cock in it and pit in there. So it's got to go cockpit. There was an advisor, white advisor to the mayor of Baltimore. This was the mayor, not the woman who went to jail, but the mayor before that, I think. And he was talking about the budget of the mayor, and he said next year we're going to have to be very niggardly, which means cheap and tight on the budget. And he was fired for saying the word niggardly. And he said, look, I don't know what you're talking about. It's a word. And they said, well, you should have known that we would misinterpret the word, so you're fired. A cockpit is something that I thought the pilots would stand up for, but apparently they've been so DEI'd that that didn't even have any resonance, the cockpit word.
Well, we've got to tackle this, Mark. We've got master bedrooms out there.
Master bedroom is my favorite. From Aaron Brockovich, who said, I will not be shopping here because I'm looking for a master bedroom. Dude, I mean, there are some crazy things going on here that hopefully will come to an end at some point. They're not going to come to an end. What I wanted to say to Maud was the reason they come down so hard on the most simplistic attempts to push back is to crush any opposition. In other words, what she was trying to say was, this was such a featherweight proposal that they were kind of astonished as to the level of crushing that was happening. But that is their insignia. That is their MO, to crush anything so nothing ever gets any kind of traction, which is what I was implying in the interview. But I'm sure she's well aware of it now. Overwhelming force. Overwhelming force for any tiny thing, the humming, they don't care. I mean, they'll, by the way, speaking of Bloomberg, which he did, he gave $20 million to the Biden campaign yesterday. 20 million to 19 was to a super PAC, or 19 and a half, and then $500,000 to whatever legally he could give to. But that was strange. I mean, you're talking about a Republican mayor who actually was a normal person a few years ago, and then he verbally endorsed Biden, and nobody does that unless you're Nancy Sinatra.
Oh, he's all over the map. I mean, he was I think he was Democrat to Republican to Independent to, I mean, whatever way Breeze sways. But
I mean, they've been pulling a real big psyop this week with these cheap takes thing, the phony poll out of Fox. I was talking to Rich Barris this morning, and Barris said these polls are completely outliers. The one that Fox has, where Biden is up by 2 points, 50 to 48 among white rural voters. Think about that for a second, folks.
No way.
He just said this is a phony poll. But anyway, it's a whole week of this stuff. They've obviously launched an offensive. This is their beginning of their campaign, was technically quietly launched this week with a massive campaign saying the videos are fake, that people have been watching of Biden falling downstairs, falling everywhere, walking off in a distance. They're putting this out there as a psyop, saying these are not deep fakes, they're cheap fakes. And I was talking to Eric before the show about this. Eric didn't know about it. So it's a language manipulation as well, which is what the Marxists do all the time.
Always.
Right, because deep fakes is a real thing. Cheap fakes, no one knows what that means. So they're creating meaning.
And because they say that, misinformation, disinformation, by the way, if they said deep fakes, you're correct. That is an actual thing.
Yes.
And it could be proven that it is not a deep fake and that it is real.
Right.
But if they use a made up term like cheap fakes, people think it's deep fakes.
That's what they did.
but the fact is that they can't be pinned down on the
right. No, that's what they did.
That doesn't exist. It's actually kind of a clever move.
Oh, it was very clever, but it was one of a number of moves they made this week. The polling, the attacks on Trump. I mean, this was their offensive, and of course, it's leading up to Thursday night, the thriller in Manila, Trump versus Biden. I don't care what you say; it's going to be fascinating. And you could say all you want about two old guys, but tell me you're not going to want to watch this. I think they had probably 100 million people who watched the first debate when they went at it. So it was like 90 or 100 million. Not really sure, but it's going to be a huge draw for CNN. I mean, and these guys are going to be loaded for bear. Jack Tapper and what's her face.
I'm sure.
So there's going to be trickery. Barris and I kind of think like, what is the upside for Trump? You know what I'm saying, Eric? I mean, you're the leader, you're the challenger who's leading in every single poll. The guy, the old man, is desperate to issue a knockout punch to you. Why get in the ring? It belies it belies debate logic to get into the ring when you're leading like this. What is the upside to lead even
I don't
more?
know. I don't know, and I never know sometimes with Trump, because another question is, why would you let them do the sentencing hearing just a couple days before the convention?
Well, there's not a question of letting him. He asked for a
delay.
The
defense requested it. No, they requested
they asked for a series of delays, and that date came up. In other words, it was going to be a week later. So they delayed what was initially going to be a week later. And then it ended up July 11th, right before that, and they accepted it. You don't really have the choice when you're asking for a delay, which they did request.
Okay, so, I was going to say.
Right, no. It was a series of court moves on their part, but they had asked for a delay and ended up being July 11th. That being said, like I said before, then Greg Kelly finally came around to thinking that he's going to be remanded, and he would go. Keep in mind, Greg Kelly's father was Ray Kelly, the chief of police of New York. So he has insight into the penal system in New York. And he was saying last night that the Secret Service is talking to prison officials at both the Tombs and Rikers Island about the accommodation of the president, where he's going to be put if he's remanded. These are not good omens, people. But this is what I had envisioned from day one. And I'm talking about day one, a year and a half ago, day one. I've been saying this nonstop. But I think it's going to be a day, and then I think it's going to be house arrest after that in Trump Tower. That's just my take on it. I think they want the photo. They want the photo op of him behind bars. It's worth $1 trillion to them. Marshawn is not having come all this way to drop the ball at the very end when Trump's CEO is in Rikers Island. His economic advisor is in a federal prison in Miami. And Steve Bannon has now asked for an emergency Supreme Court ruling to delay his. What's that?
Yeah, you sent me that. That's it.
Yeah. Steve Bannon asked for an emergency Supreme Court ruling to delay his imprisonment, which is coming next week, I think. So that's where we are.
What's going on with that, though? Because
he just sent it today. He just sent
but it looks like Roberts is acting on it.
Roberts accepted it. He accepted it.
Right, which these knuckleheads aren't accepting a lot. So the fact that he even accepted it is slightly positive.
Right, that's why I sent you the article. I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing. I don't know what's going to happen, but the reality of it is they're not against jailing every single person around him. Why would they pull the chicken switch when they got to him? What are you going to say? You're going to make MAGA people mad like they give a crap? You know what I mean? They want this slam dunk thing.
I guess, but I'm actually surprised, especially Roberts. I'm like,
on this thing, on Bannon? Yeah, it was a little surprising on the Bannon case. But I think that, if you read the article, they're talking about Bannon being literally the leader, the verbal leader of MAGA and shutting down the war room. I mean, this is Alex Jones on steroids. I mean, putting the guy in jail and shutting down his livelihood. I mean, think about obviously Alex Jones got screwed and whatever happened to Alex Jones, he wasn't imprisoned. You know what I mean? This guy's going to prison for something that the president's son did 2 minutes ago, not honoring a subpoena to the Congress And obviously, apparently, the head of the Department of Justice doesn't have to honor a subpoena.
No, why don't we lock him up?
I don't know. Again, this woman, congresswoman, the Cuban American out of Miami, who I've seen, keeps talking about inherent contempt of Congress, which allows them to send the congressional police to pick you up and bring you into Congress. I don't know. Are they just so timid? They're just strangled by their timidity. I mean, what is the deal with these mutts? Like, what is their problem? What do they care? Are they afraid that the Democrats are going to not like them? I mean, nobody's ever given me an explanation that makes any sense.
Well, because it's not. I know what it is, but it's very annoying. The right wing, especially conservatives, tend to be more honor driven and honorable.
Yeah,
and doing scheming little nasty shit that the left does is offensive to them, and they're above that. The problem is they keep being a victim of it because the other side's not above it. The other side's going to do it all day, all night.
Right? How do you play baseball if the other team has all the signals?
You need a Lee Atwater in there and some other folks that are just
Lee Atwater or Pat Buchanan or somebody like Donald Segretti. There's a bunch of these cats. Tuck. There was a guy. There's a lot of guys, but the unless you're playing a level playing field, you'll have a situation in 1951 in the Polo Grounds in New York, where the Giants came from 13 games behind the Dodgers to tie them on the final day of the season. And this game ended up in the Polo Grounds, the home of the Giants, for this championship situation. And Bobby Thompson hit the 3-run jack off of Ralph Branca, and the Giants won the pennant. Well, if you look at the book Echoing Green, which I also recommend from the book fund people who supply me with books, this is a book written by Joshua Prager, by the way, which I didn't realize. It's the son of Dennis Prager, who wrote this amazing book about how the Giants stole the pennant, and how they used the telescope from the center field wall to steal the signs from the catcher, transfer them to the third base coach, who would transfer them to the hitter. This has been rumored for many, many years since the amazing game, and MLB did not want to give it any life, so they've never really commented on it. This book goes into an incredible mystery-like spy novel of how the Giants stole the pennant in 1951. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because they used the telescope in the center field window. They stole the signs, transferred them to the third base coach, signaled them, in this case to Bobby Thompson, who was sitting dead red on a Ralph Branca fastball, jacked it out for the 3-run homer, and the Giants won the pennant. Because if you know a fastball is coming, you can adjust your body, or if a curveball is coming, you can adjust your body. And it's an amazing amount of information. That being said, there was a guy on deck who was scared shitless. It was his first year in the bigs, and he was petrified of having to come up next. He never had a bat, because that ended the pennant right there. When Thompson hit the 3-run homer, and they chanted the Giants won the pennant, and my uncle Lenny and my Uncle Harvey, along with thousands of Brooklyn fans, had to walk from Upper Manhattan back to South Brooklyn crying. The trains were too full of people heading back to Brooklyn. It was a dark day for Brooklyn. Let me just put it that way, 1951. The guy on deck who never got to bat, who was scared shitless, who was having a terrible year, at one point he was 1 for 26, was a guy named Willie Mays. And Willie Mays passed away this year at the age of 93. Willie Mays, pound for pound, and here he is, may have been the greatest ball player of all time. 660 home runs, 301 lifetime batting average. A guy who played the game the right way, had a cannon for an arm, super fast, 330 stolen bases. The Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, and they're having a ceremony down in Alabama for the Negro Leagues this weekend. I was talking to Greg yesterday on his show. Willie Mays was too ill to attend. Not that he would play. I mean, he was going to be there. He had played in the Negro Leagues. He was brought up by the Giants in 1951, had a terrible year, and this is Willie Mays sliding home. Pound for pound, I believe the greatest baseball player that ever lived. because he had literally 5 or 6 tools. And people who are baseball fans know what I'm talking about: the speed, power, great arm, defense, hit for average, hit for RBIs, hit for homers, without steroids, in an era that did not have his godson. And people say, who's his god?
Sorry, go ahead.
People say, who is the godson of Willie Mays? Well, it happens to be a guy named Barry Bonds, who clearly played the game the wrong way. Yeah, it's kind of, dude, there's so much about Willie Mays that we could do a whole episode just on Willie Mays. But I just wanted to give a shout out because he passed away. One of the greatest ball players in the history of the game. He was known as the Say Hey Kid, because everyone he saw, he would just say, hey, how's it going? So they called him the Say Hey Kid. There's great footage, if you could find it on YouTube, of Willie Mays in Upper Manhattan showing up at a stickball game in the middle of the street with a bunch of kids wearing dress clothes. And he plays stickball with these kids and goes to the plate, which is in the middle of a side street, and plays an urban game called stickball. Amazing footage. I haven't seen it in years. I'm going to try to look it up, maybe send it to Eric to put on Locals. But this is a guy who played the game the right way, came out of the Deep South, came from the Negro Leagues, and made it up to the bigs and became one of the greatest players of all time. And everybody's playing the song by Cashman about Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. And I urge everyone to listen to that song. It's about the 3 greatest center fielders in the game: Duke Snider for the Dodgers, Willie Mays for the Giants, and of course Mickey Mantle for the Yankees in the same year, all playing in New York baseball. Terry Cashman's incredible song, which went viral, became an album called Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. And we'll post that on Locals also, so we don't get in trouble here on this show. But tip of the hat to Terry Cashman for creating the album and the videos that go with it. Here it is. Here it is. Interesting. Here, does this play at all? Wow. Wow. Look at these kids. I mean, this is, there he is. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think this is in Harlem, by the way. We've all done this. We've all played this game in New York. Everybody's done this in New York, in the street or in the schoolyard. Stickball was played in various different ways. The way we played it was against a brick wall with a pitcher you'd make a box on the wall, Eric, with chalk, and that would be the strike zone, and you actually got up against the wall. That street game version is a little different because it's so narrow and it's a little tough in the sewers that count for different at bats, and the landmarks are the same, but we used a brick wall as the backstop, and we had a real pitcher pitching with a rubber ball, Pensy Pinky or a Spalding. A Pensy Pinky was a little bit more rubberized than the Spalding. That's an inside game. But anyway, I just want to give a tip of the hat and recommend this book by Dennis Prager's son, one of the great books I've ever read on baseball. The Echoing Green, The Untold Story of Bobby Thompson, Ralph Branca, and the Shot Heard Round the World, which is what it's famously called. It was a bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list a couple of years ago. Thanks.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, I'm going to shift gears, unfortunately, get back to more annoying coverage. But this is the latest James O'Keefe video. We'll watch it just for a quick minute.
Wow.
Certainly, there have been times where, there's no way we're hiring a white helmet.
It's kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but
how would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white helmet. They say
like straight to you, or okay.
They'd be very careful how they message that to agents. According to these videos.
So there we go.
It's a great series. I think that's just the beginning of it, right? There's a multi.
Oh yeah, this is like a 20-minute long video, and I'm encouraging everybody to go, watch it, the whole thing.
Well, this has been going on a long time. 1996, I wrote a treatment called Black to Africa, comedy about a kid in Harlem who is very, very pro-African stuff, and it's just street talk, and they all the kids tease him. Why don't you go back to Africa if you love it so much, among his friends, because he's just saying Africa's better than this, Africa's better than. By the way, did you see what's his name with Nathan Fannie Willis's boyfriend?
Nathan Wade.
Nathan Wade was on the Daily Show. Dude, you got to see this
on the
footage.
Daily Show.
He was on the Daily Show, and the host was Damon Wayans. Damon Wayans goes into sexual positions of Fanny in front of him, saying, and dude, it is hysterical. It is absolutely hysterical. I highly recommend that you find this clip of The Daily Show from last night with Nathan Wade and Damon Wayans, who looks exactly the same age as he did 25 years ago when they had the Wayans family on TV on Fox. Holy crap. I don't know how Nathan Wade got roped into this, but it is an amazing piece of comedy footage. Anyway, so in 1996, I wrote a thing called Black to Africa, and I sold it to Fox Family here in town, and they were just really excited about it. It was great. It was a comedy, and it was about this guy thinks that his tribe is wealthy, and they're incredibly dominant in Africa, and he actually goes back to Africa, and it's a tribe that's on the balls of their ass, just living in the jungle with nothing, and it turns out underneath is oil and blah, 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 and there's a basketball game and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, so Fox Family buys the treatment, and they said, now we have to find a writer. So I said, well, I wrote that. I'm the writer. And they said, you can't be the writer. You're white. And I said, what? And they said, right to my face. You said, you have to go find a black writer. So me and the two producers, the two of them had produced How to Marry an Axe Murderer and some other stuff. It's two big mega producers. We had to go around and find a black writer in 1996 just so we could get the project moving forward. Well, that wasn't so easy. We eventually found a guy to be the phony black writer, and they gave him $250,000 to write the first draft. Nothing came back across the transom for, I want to say, 8 months. And then he sent a note saying, I'm so sorry. I smoked crack. I smoked it all up. I'm in rehab now. Good luck. So that was the result of my racist adventure with being a white writer. Just my own personal story, in case people think this is abstract. It's not abstract. That happened to me.
Well, while we're talking about racism, we have, of course, race hustlers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We've discussed this judge before. This is Christina Peterson.
Which one is this?
Christina Peterson. Oh, there's a lot with Christina Peterson. This
who is
judge, she is a judge. She's a probate judge.
Right on.
In Douglas County, Atlanta. So it's not just Fulton County, and Douglas County too in Georgia. Sorry, not Atlanta. So we can spread it around. Now, Christina Peterson very famously became the first elected African-American probate judge.
Whatever.
Well, she got elected to be a probate judge. Within just like a couple months of being there, she said, I'm not being paid enough money.
Oh, no.
$96,000 a year or whatever.
No.
I need a raise, and you're not paying me money because, well, I'm black, right?
Oh, my God. Plot
And
twist.
so they, here's the thing, they actually agreed.
Of course they agreed.
And then they paid her, and she has the highest salary of all judges in Georgia, including those that are on the Georgia State Supreme Court.
Oh, my God. So all you have to do is ask,
the probate judge is like a lowest level judge possible. They're a paper pusher for the most part. They don't really try many cases. They're not like a criminal judge, but it gets better.
Wow.
She locked up a woman for 2 days of a 20-day sentence because this woman was Asian and married to a black guy. And she
that was her crime?
Apparently. Now, the woman, the reason why she came in front of the court at all is when she got married, on her marriage certificate, she didn't know who her father was, and she put down her uncle's name, thinking that was her father. It turns out he wasn't. So recently she had found out who her real father was. So she went, let me go change the marriage certificate to reflect my father's name. And this judge locked her up,
saying it was
fraudulent, being fraudulent because she was trying to correct it.
Holy
anyway, so
cow. Wow.
Well, it gets better. They, the state, I don't know if it's a bar, it's like a judge's thing or whatever. They said this bitch has got to go, and they fired her for incompetence. They were like, "You're out," but she's still on the bench.
Right.
Well, the latest news and why she's in the headline is
OnlyFans.
Her career is getting even better.
Right.
So she was found guilty of systemic incompetence, fired now over the past few days. She was beating up on police, got arrested. Yes.
Oh my God. What a nut.
So
that bitch been smoking some crack. That's what that is.
So Fani is not alone in Georgia.
Well, this sounds like a drug case. This sounds like a violent drug offender.
Oh, this woman's a maniac. She's like America's super mayor, Tiffany Haynard, out of Illinois.
Okay, let's get back to her. Let's see if we can move through some of the stories we have because we got delayed by the interview.
Yeah, of course.
That's a great one, Eric. That story's insane.
Oh, yeah. Now,
what else you got in the hopper there? What do you got?
Okay, well, we got stuff that's coming up that we're going to be discussing anyway.
Okay.
Baldwin, his trial is right around the corner.
Right on.
And you sent me this, that he fired a blank at a crew member before the Rust shootings.
Yeah, this was leaked by the prosecutor, by the way.
Of course.
She was screaming. There was an article in Deadline yesterday, which from last week. They've already ruled that he can't.
No, that was back in May. I looked at the date, but yeah,
it was an older article, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but they ruled that the trial will go on. The dismissal thing was dismissed. So I was strolling backwards, and apparently she got into a screaming match with the lawyers a couple months ago. So what Eric and I said to each other the other day, that this is personal now for her, and she's going for it.
I guess I've been on the other end of a phone with her.
Yeah, no. Look, we're going to try to cover this trial from beginning to end. So we're excited, Eric and I. We're jacked up over this thing. Eric and I have been covering this thing. The LA Times cited us as coverage, and Eric was a target of an investigation. That's how deep we're into this goddamn story. So we're not getting out now. We've come this far, Eric.
Yeah, it'll be the first time we've done it, but we're probably going to live stream the trial, maybe bring some friends in and out to join us and get legal minds involved or whatever. So
now I just want to cover some other California in the news stories. While I have you on the line here, Eric, there's a couple of California crazy stories that I was just reading before the show. Newsom wants illegal aliens without high school diplomas to be able to go to the community college system paid for by California taxpayers. I don't know how he came up with this. It's a convoluted one, but just things you aren't thinking are possible in terms of crazy crap. Newsom tries to put into effect here in California. So that's one story that I thought was insane. But there's another one here. Hold on.
Oh, you've got, while we're in California.
While we're in California, there's a bill. This is crazy. This is crazy, Eric. There's a bill to allow illegal immigrants to get down payments on homes so they can get a home in California from a fund that California set up for illegal immigrants to buy a home. I mean, think about how insane this is. How you would have to go from point A to point B to point C to point D to get to a bill to allow illegal immigrants to access home down payment assistance. Just astounding, crazy dots that they try to connect here.
So your methods are, Mark, if you want to get a living upgrade, you either need to be homeless or what is it? Houseless neighbor.
No, or be unhoused neighbors.
Unhoused neighbor, or be an illegal immigrant, because can't say aliens. We got to get the terms here. So if you could just find your way into one of these categories, you could get a nice living upgrade.
Well, okay. So up in, not even that far from here, in Lake Tahoe, they have a bear problem. There's bears overrunning the entire community. So the sheriff there is trying to help the community by shooting the bears. But you're not allowed to shoot the bears, so he hasn't shot any of the bears. You have to capture the bear, and if it's a female bear, it has to be released back into the wild. You say, what's so wrong about that? Well, there was a 71-year-old woman living in a home by herself, and the local librarian hadn't seen her in a while, so they sent the sheriff to check on her. And, of course, she had been eaten by a bear. And the bear was coming back for snacks on her every day. To keep eating her. She was dead. She was half there physically. The rest of the bear was coming back. So he wanted to shoot the bear. And of course, the Fish and Wildlife. No, not in California. Not in California. They had to. That's the point of the story. They had to tranquilize the bear, see if it was a male or a female bear, and then if it's female, there's nothing you could do because it could produce more bears. I guess there's a special exemption for women bears. A male bear, which may be more aggressive. In this case, it was a male bear, so they did euthanize the bear, quote unquote. But now the sheriff is saying, F it, I don't care anymore. And he's shooting them out the window of his car. And the whole town is in support of the sheriff because the town is overrun by bears. So the sheriff's department that grew up there, the people who grew up and are born there, are now at war with the state of California who want them to be eaten by freaking bears.
Yeah. And I mean, on that bear thing, once upon a time, there was enough common sense to say, if you had a mountain lion and they attacked and killed somebody, or a bear, or what, because once they get the taste, there is no barrier for their doing it again.
Right, exactly.
It's not like we're trying to be cruel. They've got a taste for it. They're extremely dangerous now.
Again, the Marxists, like we said, have taken over the California Fish and Game Department, something they probably couldn't care less about, to use their muscle for these insane things that lead to the death of human people. All of their roads lead to the death of human people. Everything they do, the homeless thing, it's 8 people a day die in the streets of Los Angeles because they're defying a court order to put them into a tent with 3,000 beds. In other words, the simplest program is to put a tent out in Bakersfield or put a tent somewhere, air-conditioned, wedding kind of tent, have military tent. I've seen the models for them. There's a guy who put the models online to use for the homeless, put in thousands of beds. You take them there and you treat them. They go to war every time that's attempted to be done because there's so many NGOs and there's so many people feeding at the trough and there's so much Marxist claptrap. The point I'm trying to make is, while they go to war over their Marxist political version of how to deal with the Hunhouse neighbors, 8 of them die every day. The people die because of their Marxist policies. They could say, well, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Nevertheless, if you look at all of their policies in all the different areas, the commonality is that they all lead to human demise. It could be 8 people a day. It could be 1 person a month. It could be 100,000 people on fentanyl a year. All of their policies lead at the end of the road to death. And I'm saying to you, it's intentional.
Of course it is. Population reduction is one of the biggest things that the left wants. I mean, that's a fact. A lot of mandates, things that are going around that we can't talk about.
It's not called mandates anymore. They're people dates.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You're right. I'm sorry. That was very offensive. Next, I'll be talking about master and slave cables.
That's right. Oh, that's got to go. I heard that.
What about male and female plugs?
That's got to go too.
I know. It's killing me. It's killing me.
All right. What else you got? We got to move a little faster here. We got a lot of
All right. Well, we got the Secret Service agent who was robbed at gunpoint in California.
Oh, this is a great one, Eric. Okay. I don't know why he was down. This is when Biden came with Obama and Clinton. They were at the Peacock Theater. Nobody knew what the Peacock Theater was. Apparently, they changed the name of theaters here every other month when they get a sponsorship. So this was the Nokia next to the Staples Center downtown where the Lakers play. But the Peacock Theater was where the event is. This happened in Tustin, which is in Orange County. Biden didn't go to Orange County, as far as I know. He might have, but I don't know. The Secret Service was down in Tustin. Why this guy who was part of his detail? This is a guy not on his own, a day off, whatever. It's part of the same night White House detail in a garage. I think it's of the hotel he was staying at. It's my guess. Gets into a shootout with a robber who steals his bag, exchanges gunfire with him. The guy gets away, doesn't know if he hit him. They won't release the name of the guy who's a Secret Service agent, nor do they know the name of the robber who he shot at. So now you've got a gunfire with a Secret Service agent, made all the national news, but every story was exactly the same. They had no explanation for what happened, why he was there. who the guy was, what the incident was. There's a lot of details left out of the story intentionally. My question was, why was he so far south into Orange County on a night when he was dealing with the security detail of Joe Biden here in downtown Los Angeles? It's a geographic question for me.
Good question. Good question. Speaking of questions, there's also a USC student arrested in a fatal stabbing of a unhoused person.
Yeah, the unhoused person, I think, was trying to kill him. I think they left that out.
No.
Gascon was on TV yesterday. I didn't read the details of it, but I think you have to arrest the person who kills someone who's an unhoused neighbor. They're almost like pedigree dogs now. They're almost like, having an expensive dog that they love, and they're protecting these animals. I say animals as if they're animals, and I think it's an anthropomorphic situation where the homeless have now become as protected as a mountain lion like P28 here in Hollywood, who lived in Griffith Park for so many years. The homeless are treated like an animal that's on the verge of extinction, if that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah, no,
they're not treated as human beings. They're not treated as human beings. They're treated as protected species, as close as I could get to explain this. So I don't know the details of this, but that story just broke.
All right, and then this is another story. We're going to jump over another state. I don't know if you saw this, but you had this transgender woman who went on a rampage, shot down both of her parents, and there's a massive manhunt. The problem is,
it's not a manhunt; it's a trans hunt. You keep getting this wrong.
I know, but then
it's a massive trans hunt.
They're going around saying there's a woman on the loose. There's a woman on the loose, and it's confusing when it gets in terms of identifying somebody.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
That gets tiresome.
Tell me about it.
When you're like, people might have seen this individual, but because they say, oh, it's a woman, and the person may not look quite as feminine as others.
Mm-hmm. We had a murderer. We had a killer on the loose in Malibu. It's about 7 years ago, who went to multiple homes and shot people in the middle of the night, and they would not put out the description of what he looked like because he was black. That was eliminated, and people flipped out, not because he was black, just because they wouldn't put out the description of. And everybody was looking for this guy. It was a manhunt for this black dude who had killed a bunch of people.
Well, he's a cop, if I recall.
No. That's a separate story. That's another story. That's the Dornan. That's a Dornan story. Where they said let him burn, and they caught him up in Big Bear, and they trapped him in a cabin, and they let him burn to the ground, killing him. This was just a random guy who had killed a couple people home to home and was on the loose. And they put out APBs on him. They interrupted TV, radio. They would not say that what his race was. And people flipped the F out over this particular case. It was so dangerous to public safety, Eric, that the Marxists stuck to their guns, leading to more death from the man.
You know, our friend Nate Brody, Nate the lawyer, was a cop one time, and he's told me about that too, where he would literally go to people who are witnesses of a crime, and he would say, so what do they look like? Well, I don't know. He was taller than you. So is there anything significant about it? Well, and then Nate would finally point, does he look like me?
Like me?
Because it gets so ludicrous about, I can't even say.
Well,
so
the newspapers wouldn't do it. It's the policy of the LA Times, policy of the New York Times, never to release the race of someone. So you can deduce based on the guy's name is Jamal Johnson. I mean, you can kind of make your own deduction.
Well, no, they will release the race if it's a white perpetrator. Sometimes or if it's a victim. This is my favorite part. Is they will say, man attacks Asian such and such, but the man who did the attacking could well be black. But if you ever read the headlines, because they did put a race in there, but they didn't put the other in there. So obviously every criminal must be white because that's the default, right?
Well, the new crime statistics that came out by the FBI, that crime is so low as to be non-existent in the new Joseph Stalin America. Apparently, they left out major cities in their crime totals.
No. The crime's dropping like a rock, Mark. You know why?
Yeah, down 44%.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you why. Because you could say, hey, it's no longer illegal to steal anything under $1,000.
And people,
you know what? Burglaries are gone.
Right. People also aren't contacting the police over stuff that's happening that used to add to the statistics. So, all right, what else you got?
That's the trick of the game. I've talked to Dr. Michael Woods. And he said,
remember, that is a trick. You're right.
So, all right. So, what do we have here? Here's somebody they did manage to catch. Did you see this?
No, I know, but I didn't understand the story so much.
I had never even
on the
heard
run. I never even heard of this guy.
Well, apparently he was a regular on CNBC. He was a CEO of Hercules Investment. Okay. And 3 years ago, they went to bust him. I guess he had defrauded, allegedly, many investors, and he vanished, and he is on the lam for 3 years. He lost between $30 and $40 million of client funds.
Wow.
So these are your experts, folks. Okay.
Right.
This is the people that they call on to give sound advice in how to invest.
Wow.
Next time you see them,
the Winklevoss brothers are back in the news. The Winklevoss brothers,
who invented Facebook.
They invented Facebook. They're twins. They gave $1 million Bitcoin to Trump last night.
Oh, good for them.
The Winklevoss twins.
Yeah,
I think they were played by the Winklevoss twins in the movie. There's some other twins play them?
Armie Hammer.
Oh, what? He played himself twice or no?
Yeah, I think Armie Hammer played the
really?
twins.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I think he
By the way, we should cover Donald Sutherland, who died also
sure.
yesterday. I mean, Donald Sutherland, a legend in Hollywood, the father of Kiefer Sutherland, a notorious drinker. Donald Sutherland, there's two things that make him of interest to me. Obviously, playing Colonel X in JFK, the amazing performance by the Washington Monument, where Oliver said that he showed up, memorized all 12 pages of his scene, and did them without an interruption of camera. I mean, he said it was one of the most amazing performances he's ever seen, Oliver. Of Donald Sutherland playing a type of Fletcher Prouty Colonel X character with Kevin Costner, explaining the history of the deep state, the history of the CIA, and that montage. That
was a great scene. Yeah.
Well, you think about the scene, you don't see him in the scene. You're seeing him at the beginning and sort of the middle and kind of at the end, because Oliver runs the montage across his dialogue of the work of the CIA toppling leaders and things like that. And there's a lot of montage stuff over the dialogue, which is kind of interesting because it's so long that he does it to keep it visually interesting, Oliver.
It's wild, though, so he didn't even technically need to do those pages straight through like he did, because they kind of edited around it anyway. So
right. He told them, he said, we could take it any way you want. We'll chop it up. We'll do it. He says, no, let's go. And he went through it in one take, uninterrupted. Wow. It's really amazing. Oliver said he's never seen anything like it in his directing life. Donald Sutherland was a beast, and I mean that in the positive way. He was also the professor when I first saw him in Animal House in 1978, where he turns everybody on to weed in Animal House. Peter Riegert is in there and in the bathtub. And that scene is cut out of the TV version of Animal House. And you never get to see Donald Sutherland smoking weed with the three Delta House, the two, and then the girlfriend members in the movie. Because when they had Barry McCaffrey, this is another story that I could just add on to this thing with Sutherland. Barry McCaffrey, when he was drug czar, paid producers in Hollywood to cut out drug scenes in any sitcom, any movie, or anything secretly. And I did a cover story for High Times in 1996, and I, as an investigative reporter, I got into the weeds on this story, and they cut out all kinds of drug scenes in movies that you'll never know were there. And one of them is this famous scene with Donald Sutherland turning these kids onto pot. Very humorous scene because of the dialogue involving them being high, which is really hip. That's from the drug czar. That's what he secretly did with the money that was given to him. Whether you like it or not, or whether you believe in that cause or not, that's the result of the drug czar's office. I think it was the office of something or other. I forget the official title. But that was from General Barry McCaffrey back in the day.
He was great in MASH too. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Not a big fan of the second Body Snatchers. The Kevin McCarthy Body Snatchers is the real deal. And I don't mean Kevin McCarthy, the former Speaker of the House. I mean the actor Kevin McCarthy, who plays in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. He was in the second one.
All right. Well, while we're talking about, if you will, people who have drugs, let's look at this little video that you shared.
Yeah, what is going on in this video?
This is the one that doesn't look like RFK is really there. It looks like a cutout of RFK with her standing next to him.
Yes, ma'am. About AI and how you use it to help our country. Well, first and foremost, we have to make sure AI isn't weaponized against us the way it is right now. To you, the government has been using AI to censor us for many, many years now. Those automatic takedown notices.
Yeah, you would know. Your husband's in it.
No,
those are algorithms that have been developed largely from the government through these NSF grants and many other agency partnerships to make sure that people's voices are silenced if they go up against the deep state. And it's very problematic. So first and foremost, we make sure AI is not weaponized against us, especially on our First Amendment rights.
Right.
So that's number one.
Right on.
Number two is understanding and defining what the purpose of any technology is, which is to foster, protect our individual liberties in this country. If it is not doing that, the government has no right at all in instituting it, utilizing it, or encouraging it, or subsidizing it. It has no place in our country to be weaponized against its people. We have to remember who the government works for. It works for us. We do not work for the government.
I just want to say that Kennedy looked like a cardboard cutout of his former self. He did not look good in that video.
No, he did not. He was obviously a cardboard cutout. That was too funny.
I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. I mean, again, this is their rally with 31 people. You got to give credit to Bernie Sanders, who had rallies of 40 to 50,000 people. They have rallies of 200 people, my friends. This was 10 people in a bar, for Christ's sakes. This is not a presidential campaign. This is a chick spouting about her husband's money and her ex-husband's inventions at Google. Give me a break.
And by the way, I like the substance of what she was saying.
Absolutely.
It's just considering the source, it's maddening. You're like, oh, so now you notice this.
Yeah, because he was saying in bed, he was falling asleep. Her husband, Mr. Google, he's going, if I could just weaponize AI against the American people. And she overheard him during pillow talk.
No,
all right, what else you got there, Bubby?
What else do I have? Let's see. We've got, I thought, okay. One guy I would recommend you do not get into a debate with is Douglas Murray.
Oh, God, yeah. God,
yeah.
I've got all his books. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with the Monk debates. Douglas Murray laid out Malcolm Gladwell last year badly. I mean, it was brutal. This is a wonderful takedown because he is debating against Mehdi Hassan, who actually wrote the book, How to Win Every Debate, is one of the most scurrilous characters out there.
Oh, yeah.
And Mehdi Hassan, relatively recently, embarrassed Matt Taibbi in an interview where he just was like rattling at him and doing what you call a gish gallop, which is a style of like overwhelming people with too many words and force. And Matt was kind of going, well,
that's kind of spectrum-y, by the way, don't you think?
Oh, no, for sure. Okay. And I'm not trying to pick on him. I'm just saying.
No. I'm just saying. He seems a little. I love the guy, but he seems a little spectrum-y.
But it's wonderful to see somebody like a Douglas Murray who.
Just to the people at home, before you start this, Hassan was working at MSNBC. He was fired, I think, for anti-Semitic remarks.
Vivek. What?
Right. But the point is, he ended up at The Guardian now as a columnist. Back in England. So just to give you an update, what happened to him in the past year.
Yeah, well, we don't really miss him, but here we go.
Started with a peroration about me not mentioning the Palestinian casualties. That's because I started by mentioning the war, and there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Mehdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages. Gideon says Israel needs nothing more than criticism. As if Israel doesn't get criticism. Wow, he doesn't even read his own country's press. By the way, you said the other day in an interview, Gideon, I couldn't care less about the Jewish state. So we know very well where you're coming from. Let me just say a couple of things about...
Anyway, it goes on for a bit. I do encourage
people to watch.
I've seen
it. It's great. Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, he's brilliant. A conservative homosexual from England, in case people didn't know who Douglas Murray was. Incredible writer, great books, Manning Crowd, and some of the others. Brilliant analyst.
Right, and while he's gay conservative, he doesn't go on about his gayness. It's just
he never does.
He
never does.
Be.
Yeah, he never does.
People always like to lay into it because he's not woke. And
he's kind of like the British Rick Grenell in a lot of ways of the literary sect. I mean, Rick Grenell, former head of national security or assistant national security director under Trump.
Right. All right. Well, you know what? We've got to get through some super chats.
Oh, go ahead. Who's stopping you? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you were stopping me. I heard you stop me. All right. Freddy65. I'll start with the Rumble rant.
Go ahead, brother.
Gave a $20 Rumble rant and said, my Democrat husband told me Ted Cruz's father was involved in JFK murder. Doesn't seem any to talk about CIA. What can I say?
Well, I mean, his father was handing out flyers with his friend Lee Harvey Oswald on Canal Street. Whether that's involved with the JFK assassination, depending on how you define involved.
Also, and that was in New Orleans. It wasn't in Dallas, so you don't have him on the scene in Dallas necessarily. So I don't know. He was handing out flyers. That's technically all he did, but it did set off Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump had some fun with it. That's for sure.
That's all that matters.
All right. TJ Adams is a new member. A fuzzy creature said, always in cash, as Barnes says. What if no detail on who did it explicitly is held by CIA?
What if no detail on who did it explicitly is held by the CIA? Meaning the files? Or again, there's not a file there that says who did it. I know this sounds like Murder on the Orient Express, but you're not going to find a file that said Mel Torme did it or whoever did it. In the end of this thing, it's going to be about our relationship to intelligence agencies around the world. In my humble opinion, of course, I could be very wrong. It's just my opinion.
And there may be some that comes out on a couple people who maybe are dead now, but they could have a son who's still alive and
who's in government.
There could be a little bit of that.
Going
on as well. All right, Squid Monkey says, what happens with all the residue left in the APTs from the dugs being done inside them? Unhoused, re equals homeless. The apartments. Okay, what happens to the residue in the apartments from the drugs being done?
They're just going to come in and clean it. I mean, these people are going to be ejected so quickly because they're going to be unsustainable in terms of what they're doing. They do have some rules. For instance, they have tried this on smaller apartment complexes, and they tend to start going crazy and inviting their other homeless friends from the street who did not get the lottery or the apartment yet. They invite them into the apartment and they just operate like they're in a cardboard box on La Brea. So they're just in a concrete box, but they bring their friends in from the street, which is prohibited, and it becomes a whole security nightmare in the buildings.
I can imagine. Well, it's like teenagers when their parents leave town, right?
Yeah, but you can't just come and go. In other words, they have security at the door to prevent others from coming and going. I mean, it's a mess. The thing's going to be a mess so quickly because they've done it with the hotels, is what I'm saying. They've taken over luxury hotels here in LA, so we know where this is going.
It's madness. Dick Dickerson coming in with 10 AUS memberships. Dick, our hero, always giving away a lot.
I call him Big Dick.
Big Dick.
Yeah.
We do appreciate it. That's $50 in membership. So
yeah,
thank you. David Parsons, Alec Baldwin's theme song, "I Didn't Know the Gun Was Loaded" by Patsy Montana.
Look, if he was shooting blanks at extras the day before playing
around,
that's
bad.
Eric, come on, Eric, come
bad
on.
news for him. Bad
come
news
on,
for him.
Come on.
Yep. If he did, it's not going to go well.
It's not going to go well with the jury.
No, because that's the intentionality now.
Yeah.
PD, it's astonishing how anyone can follow the ideology of an evil clown like Karl Marx.
Well, they followed Groucho Marx. I mean,
our preferred Marx.
But there's also Marx, the
toy maker.
Marx Toys. Patricia Marx becomes the wife of Daniel Ellsberg, who we're going to cover in an episode on Ellsberg that's going to really, hopefully, rock your world.
I have a feeling.
Ellsberg is a great story.
David Parsons, greetings from Amarillo. The DNC will pep up Joe by swapping his tube of Preparation H with mentholatum.
Look, there's drugs. I mean, if you're telling me that this is the same guy who gave the State of the Union address and he wasn't on anything, I would sell you a bridge in Brooklyn, because look how jacked up he was. Almost a different person, Eric, when he gave that insane State of the Union Orwellian speech, yelling and screaming and everything else. I mean, I don't know which. I said the other day, and I said this on Greg Bedell's show, my street method for Trump is to make faces at him, move around, distract him. I mean, it's not against the rules. They're cutting off the mics. Fine. There's plenty of facial gestures and movement.
Well, you can see Trump doing them.
That's right. No, dude, I want him to go totally street on this guy. Do not legitimize him and have any reverence for his office.
No,
don't do that. Don't do that. Don't act as if he's presidential by having any kind of reverence for him. Undermine him like the clown that he is by making facial, body, and move away from the podium to distract him like you're roving around behind him. He did it with Hillary Clinton. Remember, he went behind her. Go ahead, make them interrupt his flow by saying, "Can you please get back to the podium?" Disrupt him. Be a disruptor, bro. Make faces. Wave your arms. Do shit. If they're cutting off your mic, fight back.
Well, especially Biden, because he'll threaten you. I mean, he's threatening reporters. He gets raged.
Yes,
enraged.
That's what you want to trigger. And I got a feeling that that's what Trump is going for, that home run, that knockout punch. I think he feels that he needs to knock this guy out. And I'm using the fight metaphor again of Ali and Frazier, because I think that Trump feels that he needs a knockout to win this fight. And this is
I don't know why he's now, though. I think this is a bad move, because doing it after the convention when Biden is announced completely, by Trump knocking him out early, that puts him against a Gavin Newsom, who I do feel is a very real threat, or the like.
Well, he must have a plan. I think this is his plan, though.
Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fletcher Boy said late fee. Sorry. Don't
Way
be
to go,
sorry.
Fletcher. Way to go. $5 to get in, bro. You're late. $5 to get in now.
Soltron, sorry if I missed it, but what are your guys' thoughts on Rep. Cori Bush, the faith healer?
I think she should be indicted. I think they should arrest her and give them what they've done to other people on the other side. Go after this woman up there. Was she up out of St. Louis? I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I believe that the AGs of these red states should go after people in the blue cities of the red states. And I'm sure there's stuff Cori Bush can be indicted for. Just a guess. I'm just guessing.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, even if it's intent to foment a riot, I mean, come up with something and get these people behind bars, because this is not about revenge for me. This is a method of stopping the madness by putting some of them behind bars. And I think it's long overdue to stop the cycle, which is a one-sided cycle.
Mm-hmm. Well, once everybody's skin is in the game, then suddenly people will become more reasonable.
Yeah.
And then start because
it has to be a woman. Has to be a woman politician. I'll put that out there.
Yeah, good point.
They're driving this train. They're driving this train.
All right. Brian D said, "Hey, Mark. Hope I'm still not dead to you for missing last week's show on vacation. Sorry. Saw a comment about Packer Chester Marceau in a post show and wondered if you knew about his black FG he returned for a TD on Coke in 1980.
Oh, I see. It's about a. I don't. First of all, I don't know who Chester. He's a Packer. Green Bay Packers was he referring to.
Okay.
I don't know anything about this story. Just to be honest, I know who. I understand what he's saying in the question. He blocked a field goal, return of a touchdown on Coke. I mean, just look at the story, Brian, of Hollywood Henderson, because Hollywood Henderson is the greatest Coke football story of all time. Eventually becomes a sober minister. He wins the lotto twice, one with shotguns and pit bulls in his house in Texas, goes completely paranoid, spends all the money, and wins the lottery again and becomes born again and a Christian. Hollywood Henderson, who famously during the Super Bowl had cocaine in an oxygen tank and would put a mask on his face on the sideline in between penalties to get high on Coke through an oxygen mask on TV with 100 million people watching him. So nothing comes close to Hollywood Henderson, bro.
No, I heard that OJ had his own little habit too back in the Buffalo days.
Well, I don't know about that, but Hollywood Henderson has told his own story. I've heard him myself. So
well, we were going to be doing a show on it, I think.
Yeah, I heard the Hollywood Henderson story first. So I don't know about OJ, but Henderson's come clean.
All right. Doc 5758. How much adrenaline will they have to pump into Biden to the last 90
Nobody
minutes
knows.
in a
Right.
debate?
Nobody knows. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. What if he starts running out of gas like 45 to 50 minutes in? He starts deflating. I mean, what if they pump him up? He begins floating over the stage like a Hindenburg.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I mean, it's really a gamble. I don't know how they're going to play this other than he could just say, I'm done and walk off. You know, like an hour and 10 minutes in saying, I've had enough of you. I'm out of here. Or I think they have an escape plan. They have some sort of escape plan for him to say one final line like you're a racist and storm off.
Right. Or I will not tolerate. I will not sit here with a convicted felon
and just say I've had enough.
Justify the presidency.
Yeah. And that's of course if he defecates in his pants. He has to do that. Or
he'll walk in and do it right out the gate. That would be an interesting maneuver too.
I think they want to get some shots in. They want to get some shots in. So I don't know about right out of the gate, but I think they must, Eric, have an escape route.
Mm-hmm.
They must have an escape plan for him. If he starts feeling ill, he starts feeling like he made a duty in his pants or his drugs are wearing off. I think they have a code word.
I think they might. I mean, you're right. I mean, they'll want to get in there, but if you think about it, they got the microphone bit. So it only takes a couple of questions in for Trump to be out of hand and for him to walk out.
He could do it. He could do it anyway, anytime he wants. Right. He could go that route and just say, you know what? I've rethought this. I can't be out here with a convicted felon. Have a nice night. You know, there's many ways to skin that cat. And I'm sure they've given him a bunch of these buzz phrases that he could use as an exit strategy, bro.
Yeah.
There are two bathroom breaks, by the way. And I think you're not allowed to talk to your staff, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, these guys
won't see any
look,
signaling.
These guys have some blocked prostate, so I think 2 bathroom breaks may not be enough. I couldn't survive. I could barely survive this show.
Yeah, there's that.
But Saw Palmetto, I've given us that should be a sponsor for our show. Saw Palmetto, that would be the one to for prostate.
Okay. Carl Meinhardt. First saw Mark on Viva Fry. Been watching ever since. Great show. All the best to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, Viva gave him my start. I was in prison at the time, and he did a prison show. And Viva, I have a lot of thanks to Viva. And also, I think early on I was doing Dr. Drew's show with, I think Eric might have seen me on Dr. Drew and some other shows. But yeah, Viva, a lot of our channel, that's why we gave Viva Human Interest Man of the Year award in Palm Beach a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Jenny's getting inky with it. Cheap fakes, I think means you take a legitimate video and clip it unfavorably to bolster a fake narrative. It's confession through projection. Right,
but nobody even like what's his name? Either Schmidt or Greg Kelly was saying last night. This is from a White House news pool that is filming him as part of a pooled news crew that is in Europe or wherever. It's not like some random guy with a cell phone. Every single video we get is from their own feed. This is not being filmed by some random guy walking by.
No, whatever. I mean, they got burned so badly with his freezing.
Yeah,
that they had all their minions out there. The Harry,
the anti-freezing, the
the TikTokers and all that were all like, "It's a lie, it's a lie," and they were just saying it's a lie. It's like
good.
And everybody responded. They go,
"It's too much. It's overkill. It's right overkill. It's overkill."
Yeah,
good. I mean, keep it going. Because he's not getting any younger the next couple of weeks.
No, he's not. Blaine in said, "Mark, we need the straight dope on Billy Joe Shaver."
Dude, one of the greatest country singer-songwriters of all time, Billy Joe Shaver, also the craziest, killed a guy in a bar. One of the great stories, it was on whatchamacallit's thing, the animated show on Showtime of rock legends, which I recommend. A friend of mine produced it with what's his name from The Simpsons, or I forget. But anyway, the Billy Joe Shaver is just an amazing, amazing American story. And one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time.
All right. Dick Dickerson said, "Have you read the book by Tom O'Neill called Chaos? I think you'd be a good guest, especially with the jolly and Wes Mansetites." Okay. Not only, yes, Mark and I have both read the book, and I have interviewed Tom O'Neill on the channel under my name, Eric Hunley. So if you want to check out that interview, I did talk to him about the book, also went into Scientology with him, whether Manson was trained and things like that. So definitely check that out. Mr. Mike, Mark, what about the Oakland mayor raids? Garbage contracts and illegal political donations?
That's what I just said, right? Oh, they may be coming.
Yeah, but these have been here.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I heard. That's all I know right now because the raids were yesterday. So I don't know. I think this is just the way the Biden administration reacts. And this is just a wild guess that she fired the black police chief, and that's what triggered it.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. Dick Dickerson, watch out. Dustin's coming in hot and gave 10 memberships himself.
This guy Russell's kind of into it. Look at him battling to the death against Dickerson. Dustin versus Dickerson. Holy crap. It's Dustin versus the big dick.
Yeah, it's on.
Who's going to win this thing?
I don't know, but Dickerson's back with his own super chat saying Douglas Murray absolutely destroyed Shank on Piers Morgan.
Thank you, Dick. Absolutely. Let me tell you something. Murray, I love watching this guy. Very good. People are going to be afraid to debate him. It's kind of like, I'll give you the black example of him, is Larry Elder. Nobody will have Larry Elder on their show discussing race or June 19th or whatever the F is coming up, because he is so fast and so accurate that they cannot have him on. So these cats get blocked out.
Could you imagine on the same stage, Douglas Murray and Larry Elder, or Douglas Murray and Jordan Peterson? You know, I mean,
well, that's why I professed a year ago on this channel that we have this left-right debate in public forums to go at this thing for anybody who's willing to step up on the other side. It doesn't have to be those heavyweights. It can be lesser people who are willing to have a series of debates in schools or auditoriums or libraries around the country. I'm calling for this as a public civic trust to try to put us back into some sort of bipartisan country. And I think it would start with these woke versus unwoke debates and have them all over the country, multiple formats with multiple people.
Well, and they've got some, the monk debates tend to be on that a little bit. The Oxford series,
I'm talking about a much lower level of intellectual stuff, where it's not like at Oxford. I'm talking about at a high school, and have a lot of them, so it penetrates and permeates into. No kidding.
Because I don't know if his name is Warren. It might be like Warren Smith, but I don't know if you saw him. David's had him on Viva. He's supposed to come on with me at some point. He had a dialogue with one of his students where the student was saying, J.K. Rowling is obviously, transphobe, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, okay, can you show me the tweets? And then he went through and eventually the student was like, wow, I kind of feel like an ass. I was wrong. And it was just a straight Socratic dialogue. Well, he's been fired.
Right. Well, I'm talking about not in a classroom. I'm talking about these are organized public debate. There will be a fund for it. It could be a teacher. It could be a fireman. I don't really care. But you'll have two sides of the debate. It could be in Des Moines, Iowa. It could be around all different times, all different places, simultaneously going on at multiple levels.
It'd be nice, but it's unlikely. For one side's not going to show up.
That's okay. That's okay too.
So, all right. R&B 1213, waiting for the president to have a public adverse reaction to the cocktail drugs he's being bumped up.
Right.
It with a great show as always.
Yeah, he could have a bad reaction. He could just buckle and collapse. I mean, but that's what the reason I'm using the fight analogy is because when you watch a great fight and some guy goes down and you hear Howard Cosell going, down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier. You go like, holy crap, this guy, the mummy, George Foreman just knocked down Frazier in New Orleans. And you're just like, holy crap, he was unbeatable. Well, the analogy is not that far off. If Biden actually goes down, I would like to hear the Cosell down goes Frazier thing for down goes Biden. Because I don't think Trump is going to buckle. I don't think he's going to hit the ground.
No, he's not. All right. Fletcher Boy said it'll be Hillary wearing a disguise at the debate.
That's funny.
I'm sure she'll be behind the
thanks
scenes.
for that donation, by the way. That was quite substantial. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Mazamar 312. Yeah, we did talk about Donald Sutherland earlier. I know this
think he was 88. I mean, it's not like he didn't live. I mean, this guy was he had a good full life.
Oh, for sure.
Kiefer used to. I don't know what happened to him, but he used to go crazy drinking. I don't know if he's sober or not. I mean, he's had a rough career.
Yeah, he's had ups and downs. He's a good actor. And
I once saw him just in the middle of the street here in the middle of the night on in my neighborhood and out of his mind in the street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a little anecdote there.
All right. BTK said Trump, Cruz, Stefanik, Forte versus AOC and MAGA support.
As one of the debates. Is that what he's saying? Or
maybe. I don't
know what that was about. Yeah.
Could be. And last one here, Electric Beaver. Mark, I remember that there was a country music star that robbed the rocket gas station in Denair, California. Is that Canada or California? It was in the 50s or 60s. Do you know who it was? I can't seem to remember who it was.
I don't know. I really don't. I think you're muted, Eric.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
I coughed. Was it one of the people that Johnny Cash hung out with? Because weren't a couple of them in trouble sometimes?
I don't know.
Like Hank Williams Jr. or any of them?
That I don't know, but
or Merle Haggard.
Look, a lot of names there, my friend. A lot of history of country, but
I don't know.
Billy Joe deserves his own movie. That's all I could tell you.
Well, it sounds that way. All right. Well, we are going to be shifting over to locals and following Oswald to head over there. Mark has officially gotten his panda on the way. But before,
yeah, it comes into play in the Nixon story, because during the China diplomacy, they send us pandas, and we're going to get into that. They end up at the DC Zoo, and there's tapes of Nixon talking to Pat about the pandas, which I just listened to last night. So just by coincidence, he says, can you hug them? Can you touch them? And she says, no, they're behind glass, and they were showing the footage of the pandas.
Well, you know what? We haven't come up with names for them. I mean, right now they're collectively called the Tramps, the new ones. How about Nixon? Nixon the panda.
Sure, go on.
We got Oswald and we got Robert. Nixon. We got Nixon the panda.
I could live with that.
So perfect.
I could live with that.
All right, Fletcher boy. Trump will bring lawyers, guns, and money to the debate.
Let me tell you something. Warren Zevon was so crazy as an alcoholic, just one of the craziest alcoholics of all time. Eventually killed him. Who wrote Lawyers, Guns, and Money, by the way, tribute to Warren Zevon.
I kind of, assume that. Didn't Gary Rafferty also die of alcoholic poisoning? Or
that I don't know.
Alcoholism?
I don't know that.
All right, Scott Harmon. I love you guys. Thank you for what you were doing and reminding others that they still have a voice.
Right. I just want, before we go away, I just want to say I'm going to be camping next week. We're going to do a live show on Tuesday with a Watergate Q&A. So if you want to get, I don't know all the answers yet, so it's going to be interesting for me too. And what I don't know, I'll say we're not up to yet. But Watergate, our first, Eric, right? Our first Watergate Q&A will be on Tuesday. And bring your questions. I'll do the best I can.
Try to focus on the stuff we've already done.
Because if I haven't gotten to it yet, I'm going to say we're going to get to it. So you're not going to get an answer unless I absolutely know the answer. But I'd rather not get into what we haven't gotten into yet, because
we've got G. Gordon Liddy, we've got Frank Sturgis, we have
there's quite a bit
Barker.
Yeah,
we did a Watergate thing with Jeff Shepard twice. So there's stuff out there to choose from.
Right, and we're going to do a Jeff Shepard. He just emailed me the other day. We don't have a date, but we're eventually going to do a Jeff Shepard just on John Dean. So if you can avoid John Dean, because we're going to do that with Jeff.
All right. Doc 5758, wasn't Donald Sutherland a big leftist? He was running around.
Yes, he was, but he never opened his mouth. No, that's true. But he never really pontificated on it. He did lend his presence, but he wasn't at least behind an anti-aircraft gun in North Vietnam, making believe she was shooting down American planes. So there's some tip of the hat to Sutherland for not doing that.
Good point.
There's a lot of people against the war. At least he didn't. Maybe he did. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But Jane Fonda took it a little bit too far with wearing North Vietnamese military attire, helmets,
comforting the enemy.
Yeah,
literally.
I don't know why she ever got away with it. I think the Nixon tapes may cover it, but I was listening to stuff about Ellsberg last night. Holy crap!
Wow. Well, one last thing before we go. In order to get all these stories in, we need to imbibe with substances. And our substance is America's Untold Stories Supreme Breakfast Blend.
Wow.
If you want to get your energy up, get ready for the day.
I do.
And get forward to, get off of our fat asses.
I do.
We need to have some America's Untold Stories Supreme Breakfast Blend by our friends at Moondos. This is incredible coffee. There's a link in the description, but you can just go to americasuntoldstories.com/coffee.
Right on.
I have this every day. Live by it. Get a pot, brew it in the morning, and I drink it till noon. And it is some fantastic stuff.
Holy crap.
What is it blended with, Jennifer Kelly?
Well, it's a secret sauce, Jennifer. We can't give it away. It's a secret.
It actually is on the label.
Proprietary blend.
It is a combination of Sumatra, which is
Frank Sumatra.
It's ancient coffee beans and methodology, kind of like my co-host.
Right.
And then you have the fresher, newer Chiapas coffee beans. They're done in a modern European style, mixed together and that gives you the flavor for the coffee. Not only
like a bouillabaisse. Sure. It's like a bouillabaisse of different beans.
Exactly. It is a bouillabaisse of different beans.
You can find me at Lord Buckley. I want to see if anybody subscribes to me on Twitter. If you get blocked, it's a badge of honor. I just want to apologize in advance for.
Don't ask me.
Don't go to Hunley crying like a bitch because you got blocked for saying something stupid. That's part of the fun of being on Twitter. I'm not there to debate anyone. It's for people who think like us, like Hunley and I, and we're not there to argue. I don't have the patience for it. So if you do get blocked, I'm sorry. But I'd love to see if this works, if somebody would subscribe. I'm curious if I'm being shadow banned again by Musk's evil World Economic Forum hatchet lady or not. And anyone who wants to donate to the PayPal book fund for now Watergate is more than welcome. Or Hunley, you can follow Hunley at his channels and Hunley at Hunley Eric on Twitter. He's much nicer than me, so you may enjoy the Hunley blend or the more sarcastic, harsher blend of stimulants on my Twitter feed. But either one, I just want to see if anybody does it.
All right. And
we're going over now. We're going over to
local. So everybody get on. Come on, let's go.
Okay, let's go. The time's